Welcome to DuckU News, the University of Oregon's weekly campus news broadcast. I'm Matt Hanlon.
And I'm Sarah Dinsmore. Thursday night's cold weather didn't deter some 300 student and community activists from rallying and marching for sexual abuse prevention in the 31st annual Take Back the Night event. Sarah Allen reports.
You may be surprised to know that 1 in 4 women are sexually assaulted on college campuses nationwide. These 2,798 flags represent the estimated number of U of O women who are victims of sexual violence.
It's sort of something that gets ignored, yet it's such a huge issue within our community. It's an epidemic at this point, and yet it's so completely ignored.
Cheering, chanting, and marching, the Eugenian student community gathered to protest continued sexual violence in Eugene and around the world. The UO amphitheater was packed with survivors of sexual harassment and their allies.
It seems so no-brainer to me. Of course you don't. You never hit somebody. You never hit a woman. You never hit a man. We've lost respect for each other as human beings.
UO-sponsored programs such as the Assault Prevention Shuttle are risk reduction options, but organizers of the event want the public to reform their ideas of rape perpetrators.
Perpetrators and rapists aren't the creepy guy that jumps out of the bushes, wearing a trench coat, that whole sort of stereotypical view of sexual assault. I mean, that does happen, but oftentimes it's the people that you know and trust and love.
Nearly 90% of college rapes are committed by acquaintances. But it is important to note, sexual harassment applies to everyone.
It's not just a woman's issue, it's not just a Spanish issue, it's not just a Mexican issue or Guatemalan issue, it's not a minority issue, it's not even just a male issue, it's a human issue. And that's what I like about this.
The University of Oregon currently has 271 academic programs, and that number is growing. Hendricks Hall's Center for Latin American Studies recently unveiled a new Bachelor of Arts major.
That will be excellent for all students who want to broaden their horizons.
Students are showing their support.
Before it was a major, we had a lot of minors in Latin American studies, and that's why I guess that for the administration it was no-brainer to make it into a major.
The program features guest lectures, a film series, and several research grants.
We have to start thinking of the Americas and not this divided America.
Interested students can visit the center's website for upcoming events and opportunities, as well as find resources for Latin studies.
The University of Oregon will be hosting the Cinema Pacific Film Festival May 5th through 9th. Administered by UO grad students in the Arts and Administration program and undergraduate interns. The festival seeks to highlight international film and new media from Pacific bordering countries. The festival will be screening a diverse body of work, and students can get in at a discounted price. For more information, including a schedule of events, visit the Cinema Pacific website.
It's commonplace to hear students express their frustrations with parking on campus. An increase in parking prices and a shift in the open availability of some lots has made parking even more of a challenge. The Department of Public Safety raised the cost of a meter to $1 per hour, and the price of a parking pass more than doubled from $125 to $300. Even students who have purchased parking permits in the past have had trouble finding a spot.
I do have troubles finding a parking spot on campus. Even though I am guaranteed a parking spot, I still cannot park in the parking lot.
The Department of Public Safety has also cut the hours of some parking lots and has started issuing more tickets. A new parking structure below the Matthew Knight Arena is currently under construction and will create 377 new parking spots, 135 of which are strictly limited to student athletes using the Jaqua Academic Center.
Ballots in Oregon were recently mailed out. One race that is demanding statewide attention is Oregon's gubernatorial election. A hot-button issue in the race has been education. DuckU's Deborah Bloom takes a look at Oregon's political environment in regards to education.
Here in Salem, state funding for higher education has slowly been decreasing for the past 20 years. However, May 12th's primary elections will give Oregonians the opportunity to decide whether or not they want this to remain the status quo. As college enrollment increases, state funding for higher ed has fallen short of the exponential rise in college tuition.
Our state's looking at a $2.5 billion budget shortfall in the next biennium, even with measures 66 and 67 having passed, so it will be critical.
4 major contenders for Oregon's next governor, Alan Alley, Chris Dudley, Bill Bradbury, and John Kitzhaber, all attest to the importance of education but have different platforms on how to sustain it. Alan Alley, former CEO and Deputy Chief of Staff to outgoing Governor Ted Kulongoski, has experience working with community education development but does not see funding higher education as cause for concern. Holistically, Alley says that Oregon's educational system already receives a substantial amount of money that is inefficiently spent. Alley also proposes a greater investment in charter schools and virtual learning. Chris Dudley, former NBA player, acknowledges a need to reverse the trend of higher education divestment, but still considers K-12 education to be a primary concern. Additionally, Dudley advocates for greater autonomy for higher ed administrations and intends to do away with so-called outdated regulations. Former Secretary of State Bill Bradbury calls for deducting tax cuts on Oregon's residents in order to generate funding for higher ed. It's a strategy he expects to bring in $2 billion per biennium. John Kitzhaber, former governor of Oregon, advocates for more federal funding for institutional research in addition to restructuring Oregon's educational budgeting process. This, he says, will do away with competition between the financial interests of K-12 and higher ed.
Higher education is really it's an indicator of how strong we are in the future. It's connected to our economic strength. It's connected to our values as a state.
As with all public amenities, each voter must weigh the value against the cost. For Scott Zoltan, I'm Deborah Bloom, DuckU News.
That's all for this week's episode of DuckU News. Catch us next time for your weekly campus update. I'm Matt Hanlon.
And I'm Sarah Dinsmore. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time.